exercise. All the other ones are warm-up sets, so this will be my first working set of this exercise, and I'll only be one for each of what I'm doing. Otherwise it will be way too much work, way too much volume to even recover properly from. So I'm just going to have fun this workout, but still make muscle gains by doing at least one working set. Now, the first exercise of any workout for me is the entire warm-up, so that's why I'm taking quite a lot of warm-up sets, and even the working set is quite a lot of reps. Normally my working sets are around 8 to 12 reps, and then a second working set of around 15 reps. But this is my working set where I go pretty much 1 to 2 reps shy from failure, just to get really used to the movement, just to get a lot of blood in the muscle before starting with the rest of the workout. And this is the second exercise, the incline bench press. Now the benches here, and there are a lot of different benches, but this one goes to an incline position of around 45 degrees, which is the standard incline that a lot of standard incline bench presses go. But I personally like it around 20-25 degrees, so a less steep incline, because for me I only need a slight angle to target that muscle in a different way. And this, more steep angle, which a lot of people do like, but personally for me I don't like it as much, because it irritates the front delts and takes the front delts into the movement a bit more compared to the less steep incline bench of around 20 degrees. But anyway, I still did it. I haven't had any shoulder impingements or injuries for a very long time, and I didn't feel anything while doing this exercise. I just had to get used to doing this movement again under this incline position, because I always do it in our own gym on a bench that you can set on a lot of different settings, like 8 or 9 different settings of the incline bench, so a lot of different angles and degrees you can use. So I did a lot of warm-up sets again, because I like to do that on any free weight exercise, especially when I'm training the chest, where a bench press like this is always going to be more injury prone compared to a machine or a dumbbell press, for example. So this is my working set. Now Wesley behind me is helping me a little bit, but it looks like he's helping a lot, but in reality it was minimal, because it really felt like my muscle was fatiguing all the way to the end. And it pretty much was a set that went a little beyond failure with 1 or 2 reps if he didn't help me at all. But I'm going all the way down, touching my chest. Some people can't, like Wesley right here. If he would go down all the way, it would simply increase his risk of injury, stretch out the chest too much, mainly stretch out the joints and tendons and shoulders too much, not allowing for it to be a good exercise. But for me, I like to go all the way down. Now this exercise is a very interesting one. It looks like a cable fly, but also a pec deck machine, and so I call it the cable pec deck. It's I've never done this one before. I've seen it on several gyms in America, for example, or people posting on social media where they also have access to a very big gym. So I really love this exercise, and for one big reason, it doesn't irritate the shoulders at all. It doesn't bring in the triceps at all. It only works the chest, and the best way to make sure it only works the chest is by retracting the shoulder blades back, and that way you can see it right here. I'm pretty much having a hollow, an arched back, and my shoulder blades are pushed together, and that way I have a much better stretch in the chest and a much better contraction as well, without using the front delts as much, because that's not what we want to use in this exercise. We only want to use the chest muscles. So whenever doing an exercise like this, whether it's a normal cable fly or a normal pec deck or a dumbbell fly, always make sure to retract the shoulder blades and make sure the chest is really the working part of the whole exercise and not any other muscle group, because just think about this, we are a bodybuilder. What we are doing the exercise for is the chest, so you want to eliminate any other muscle group from helping you when it's not necessary. Of course, it's not always avoidable. For example, on this bench press, when you do a bench press, the triceps will always aid the chest because it's a compound exercise, and every single compound exercises has usage of multiple muscles. So you can't do a compound movement using only one muscle group, because then it wouldn't be a compound but an isolation movement. An example of an isolation movement for the chest is, as we all know, the flies. But this one is also very great for targeting the chest. Here you can see that the chest is actually contracting and stretching quite well using the regular barbell bench press. A lot of people tell me, well, I can't feel the chest, or I can't feel the stretch or the contraction here. Well, you don't really need to feel it as much, because you can see here that the motion of the bar going up and down really is promoted and executed by those pectoral muscles. And this was my last warm-up set, by the way. The working set wasn't captured, but the working set was with 140 kilos for, I think, 10 reps again. And keep in mind, doing the bench press after having already done a few exercises makes it a lot more challenging, but at the same time you feel a lot better mind-muscle connection in the chest muscle, and that's what we want. That's what bodybuilding is all about. Here I'm taking a picture with the owner of the gym, very nice and kind person. I will be working out in this gym closer to my Olympia prep again, probably in October or November, when I'm in a lot better shape, because I like to visit different gyms every now and then, and especially help promote their gym, because every time I join a gym, especially in the Netherlands or Belgium, lots of people like to take notice of that, because they don't normally meet any pro bodybuilder. And for me, in my mind, I'm still just a regular guy, but it's just awesome to hear people, say they've been inspired by you, watch your videos, and that's just always very motivating. So that's also a part why I like sometimes going to other gyms, to hear other people talk about their own motivations and how I could be of help for them, and that motivates me in turn to keep going with what I'm doing. So that's just incredibly awesome. And as I told you guys, it's a high volume chest workout. So here we are doing another fly variation, the dumbbell flies, the classic one of course. And here you also want to keep your arm as if the elbow wasn't a joint, so as if the arm was just in this position always, and that way you can really make sure to isolate the chest without using, for example, the triceps as much, because otherwise it will simply be a pressing movement. And you can see when I'm performing the exercise, you also have to watch out for the biceps. I always think about Tom Platz doing those dumbbell flies, and he actually torn his bicep doing dumbbell flies, and you would think, well, how on earth can you tear a bicep when you're training the chest? Well, when you look closely to how I move my arms, you can see that the elbow is moving just a little bit at the bottom to ensure that the tension is being brought from the biceps to the chest, because if I would go even wider with my arms, there will be a lot of tension on the biceps. And just imagine, this is 26 kilograms, and I'm going even heavier after this. If all of the tension would be isometrically put on the bicep, and I accidentally stretch out it too much, it might actually injure it by a lot. So I would preferably take 5% off of my form to save my biceps in the process, because they have been, the tendons of my bicep have been slightly sensitive throughout the year, so I don't want to risk anything like that. So at the same time, you shouldn't be going way too heavy on any isolation movement, pretty much for any body part or any muscle group. And in my opinion, especially the chest, because what you always hear, you either tear a bicep, you tear a pec, or you have shoulder problems. It's almost, in the upper body at least, one of those three. And all of them can happen when you do the dumbbell flies in the wrong way. So don't go too heavy. Adjust your form a little bit to make sure you don't feel any pain at all. And at the same time, do it not at the beginning of the workout. I see some people starting out with heavy flies, to pre-exhaust the chest before doing any compound movements. But then, in my opinion, stick to either a pec deck or a unilateral, shoulder level cable fly, for example, that you don't go super heavy with, but you can still stretch and contract the chest muscle, which is the only muscle that you should train when doing a fly motion. And just when you thought we were done with the chest, or at least the fly variations, we are doing another one. I had to do this one because my friend Wesley here, he told me this machine was here, he really liked it. I never tried it in my life, so obviously since I'm here and it's about a 90-minute drive, well, pretty much a little more since it's in Antwerpen, a big city in Belgium, which is always busy, so it took a bit longer to get here. But when I'm here, I want to try all of those exercises out, while at the same time performing correct form, correct time and attention to make sure it's a fruitful workout. But this exercise is, I call it the upright seated flies. You can do this exercise as well with cables. I've done this before, where you do a regular fly first with the cable flies and then stand upright and then perform the flies like that. It makes the exercise a lot more difficult, and it really allows you to contract the lower pecs quite hard. That's the big difference between this one and a regular fly. So it's not just the same and just another angle. No, it really is a very different feeling you have in performing this exercise. You also are able to contract the chest really easily, and you take out the shoulders entirely. At least for me, I didn't feel the shoulders at all during this exercise, so only the chest. And partly that has to do, of course, with already having done a lot of exercises before, so the chest is really the weak link in any other muscle I might be using here. But you also don't really feel a good stretch at the top, so it's really a contraction exercise. You can see here that the stretch portion is pretty easy, but the contraction, that's where it becomes difficult. So those were all the chest exercises. Got a good pump in the chest, and now it's time to hit the triceps, because personally I always like hitting the triceps after chest, especially because triceps are, not as much a weak point anymore compared to before, but still they can be bigger, especially in the front double bicep poses. And I'll be doing some posing on the end of this video to show you a bit of my progress, not really clearly though, but still you can see some growth having occurred over the last few months of bulking. And I'm happy to say that there's still some striations in the triceps when doing this exercise. So whenever I like doing triceps, I start with the rope push down or an isolation movement like this to make sure I warm up the joints. You might say, well, you've already done so many chest exercises, why would you still need to warm up for the triceps? Well, this exercise not only warms up that specific portion of the joint, tendons and triceps, but it also primes me to really get blood in there, get a good pump, so the next exercise, which usually is a stretch exercise for the triceps, works that much better. As I always say, the better the contraction and the pump, the better the stretch will be. And where does growth occur? In the stretch, at least in a full range of motion, which the stretch is a very vital part of it. And in my opinion, if you always perform a half range of motion, you simply won't be able to develop muscles as complete and big and striated and detailed compared to doing a full range of motion as I'm doing right here. I could go I could go down and not contract the tricep in the way I'm doing here. You can see those striations in the long and short head because I'm focusing with a mind-muscle connection in the contraction of the muscle. I could go down and you would not see the same amount of detail being carved in those triceps. I believe, and again, this is my opinion, based on experience and seeing my own body change over the years, comparing it to others who I know for years, that if you train like this for many years, contracting the muscles to the max, I have the same with the chest, even the back, the lower back, you will see more details in the muscles being created compared to not using that full range of motion. I have a lot of details in a lot of muscles, especially when I'm pretty lean, but here I'm not lean at all compared to, of course, a contest prep, at the end of the contest prep, where you see a lot more details. But even now, you still see some of those carved in details in, for example, the triceps, which normally I think I would not have if I would train heavier with a shoulder range of motion. Maybe the muscles would be rounder, but less detailed. And for me, it's about the quality, not the quantity. So this is a stretch exercise I was talking about, the overhead unilateral tricep extension with a dumbbell. It's a really nice way to balance out the triceps. For me, the left and right side are pretty equal, so I start up with the right side and then do match the reps with the left side to make sure I hit equal reps. But when going downwards with the dumbbell, you want to feel that stretch in the tricep, and that is made easier when you already got a nice pump in there. And I did a few sets of those. And then the last exercise of the day is actually a superset. And this superset is done with a V-bar push down, around 12 to 15 reps, really getting some nice volume in there before adding this high volume workout. So first doing a push down with quite a heavy weight, and then doing an overhead extension. So the superset I'm doing here is almost like the two exercises I did before, but then combined into one. So first the push down, getting some blood in the triceps again, using a different handle, so hitting it from a different angle, and then doing this overhead extension to make sure I stretch out the long head of the tricep, which in this clip is the lowest part on my arm on the tricep there, the hanging shape of the tricep. Basically, that's what I want to improve. That's what will make my front double bicep pose a lot better and the fullness of my arms a lot better, and that's what you want to feel stretching out here during this exercise and during this motion. That is the most important thing. So when you're doing a superset of triceps, I really love doing a variation like this, where I first do some push downs to really get the blood moving, get a good pump within the set itself, then immediately moving on to an exercise like this, the overhead extension, to make sure that I use that pump to get a maximum stretch. And that way you can really maximize the output of that muscle in that particular exercise. So here I'm doing some posing. Of course, well, if you look at my right shoulder, the fly wanted a piece of me. But anyway, when you have some good lighting in the gym, you might wanna make advantage of it and do some poses. Here you can see a little bit what I mean. I want a bit more hang of the triceps. That makes my arms look a lot bigger, especially because my forearms are pretty big, and compared to the upper arm, that then means that the upper arm needs to improve a little bit as well. Especially in this pose, I just want the triceps to hang a bit lower. When I'm a lot leaner, you can see that the bicep has a higher peak. Now it's not really visible, the difference between the long and short head of the bicep, but it will be a lot more visible when you are lean, of course. So here I'm doing some of the mandatories, taking pictures of it, and of course videotaping it, as you see right here, because I don't do that a lot in the off season, just